Okay, here is Justin. Hey, Justin, good to have you back, sir. Oh, you are muted.
I was saying I figured it out this time, but I obviously did not figure it out this time.
uh, he already got one round of practice in, so he was the first one in here. Makes sense. Garrison, how's it going? Oh, Garrison froze. Is it just me?
No, he's very frozen. In quite a pose, though. That's a good pose.
That is. It
I
could have
think
been a lot worse.
I'm going to take a screenshot of that one.
Oh, he's posing again for us. Also
You're
muted.
def you're definitely muted, at least.
I am muted. So that's how you work the computer.
Excellent. All right. So waiting on Mostafa to come in. Perhaps.
Mostafa, I think you have to leave and then the thing and then come back in and then like a thing pops up.
Yeah. Let me also, Mostafa, make sure maybe you have a couple of different users in here. Let me make sure. Mostafa Said. Okay. And then Mostafa. Yeah. Mostafa's done a lot of testing on this platform, so he has a few different users. Maybe I invited the wrong one. All right. Okay. Well, while we are waiting on Mostafa to join us, if you could just give us a brief introduction about who you are in just a sentence or two and what your experience with AI is. Like, why are you here? Justin, would you like to start?
Sure. My name is Justin Schrader, and I hail from Charlottesville, Virginia. My experiences with AI are many and varied. Most people don't know me, but if you do know me, it's probably from a bunch of open source projects that I've released over time, FormKit and AutoAnimate and a few other ones. And my latest and greatest AI stuff is actually trying to build things with AI. So there's an app. It's not even an app. It's a fitness trainer. So if you go to bod.coach, it's a website, bod.coach, no .com, just .coach. And it's like you get like a contact card on your phone, and then it like plans your workouts for you and like texts you and reminds you. And like when you're not going to the gym, it like gets really obnoxious. And when you're in the gym, it like has all your workouts and tells you how to do everything and works you through and everything. But obviously those are all agentic systems that are working behind the scenes. And so that's my most recent AI stuff, but obviously doing a lot of AI coding and doing a lot of the coding with AI as well. And I'm here as an instructor for this awesome course. So
Awesome.
that's me.
Thank you very much, Justin. Mostafa, welcome to the feed here, the live feed.
Thank you.
Why don't you, since you just jumped in, why don't you introduce yourself quickly and just tell us why you're here? What's your interaction with AI?
Yeah, so my name is Mostafa. I'm based in Egypt, and I am the Director of Education at Better Brains. And basically, I'm here because of AIDD and what we're trying to make with AIDD and how this new thing is really, really changing everything about how developers work. And everyone is not sure of how it's going to be like. So yeah, that's basically why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And yeah, I guess that's all.
Awesome. And lastly, Garrison.
Yeah, so I'm Garrison Snelling. I'm the founder of Compute SDK. Like Justin, I'm going to use the word hail. I hail from Alabama, Opelika, Alabama, which, random fact, Daniel may not want me to say this, but he's actually from my town. So we can all get together and have a hangout if y'all want to do that. We've also talked about going to Egypt. I hope we can really get there. That would be great, guys.
Please do.
One of the things I think my AI journey is probably very similar to a lot of y'all's. I'm a self-taught programmer. I obviously have no formal education. I just was a 13-year-old kid making websites and turned it into a career. And one of the things that I was really interested in about AI was actually how much you could teach yourself, how you were no longer really constrained by your ability to kind of consume tutorial articles. You could actually have customized articles generated based on your learning style and your habits, and sometimes even watch it kind of do the work for you. And that was particularly interesting to me. And when I started down the journey of building Compute SDK, which is essentially like a multi-provider sandbox toolkit, kind of the toolkit exists around managing other people's code because this is going to be such a big problem for us in the future. I started to build prototypes with it. And the prototypes themselves, I was actually using, I think it was maybe one of the first projects that I'd used AI for exclusively. I remember I was using Windsurf. And I was just flabbergasted as somebody who was very new to Kubernetes at how quickly I could learn these core concepts of Kubernetes. And, at this point, I started out as a front-end engineer, and you'd be surprised at the kind of conversations that I'm able to have about Kubernetes as somebody who's, just learned all this in the past year. And I think that's truly remarkable. And so that's kind of when I think of AI and just how amazing it is. I don't want it to do my work for me. I want it to teach me. That's what I want.
Very interesting. If somebody had told me a year ago that one of the courses that I was producing was going to be, I was going to have to write some React code, I would have never believed you. But here I am, and it's because of AI that I'm able to do that. I'm able to learn more quickly than I ever have, and the precise things I want to learn. Right,
like Kubernetes.
That's not on my list. All right, great, everyone. So during this time of the panel, we will be sourcing questions from that Q&A tab. So that Q&A tab, remember, is at the bottom of the screen. This is the same Q&A tab that you've used during all the speaker sessions. Please go ahead and start throwing any questions you have for the panel in there. It can be about anything about some of these guys' workflows. It can be anything about the AI-driven development masterclass that we have been talking about throughout the program. It can be anything related to AI, something for Justin, like maybe how he, something about integrating AI into the end application, things like that. We are open to all of those types of questions. Please just throw those on the chat, that Q&A, not the chat, but the Q&A panel there. All right, well, let's start answering a few. Oh, one last thing. If you had a question earlier for, especially like somebody like Justin who already had a talk and he didn't get to your question, I have removed a lot of those so that I could keep up better with the questions for the talk. Throw that back in the Q&A panel again if you did not have that answered, and we'd be happy to answer it for you. All right, let's start taking questions now. The first question is, what's the most important change I can make right now to start preparing my skill set for, actually, this might have been for Ken. I probably missed this, but I think maybe we might be able to weigh in on this. What's one thing you can do right now to start preparing your skill set for being an AI-driven developer? Let's put it that way.
I actually really like Kent's take on sort of the role of MCP being a way to give technical access to non-technical people. That's my summary of the most important thing he talked about. And if you think about the way that that's happened in the past, you give non-technical people access through very careful and deliberate designing of UX interfaces. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of money. And you're trying to sort of guess the way that your users' brains work. And inevitably, you're trying to guess for the majority of users. And so what's really cool about being able to expose maybe technical is the wrong word, but expose things to a sort of non-technical interface like a chat app, is we can give anybody the ability to get done what they need to get done. So like a simple example would be a customer service. Like imagine you're working for a company doing customer service or customer support. What if instead of the person who has to look up your account needing to go through some crazy CRM and search for the user by their user ID, that's some 20-digit number and all of this other stuff, like what if they just had a chat agent as the employee and they were able to say, oh, somebody's on the phone with me, their name's Garrison, I don't really know anything else. It would be like, oh, why don't you ask them what state they're from? Oh, they're from Alabama. Okay. Oh, we only have 2 people in the database that are from Alabama. So is it this one? Right? Like it could provide these really interesting and new interfaces. And you as the developer almost don't need to create that interface. You just need to expose the right tools. So I do think that is really exciting. And to get started, do it. Like create your own MCP server. Get working on building out those skills and seeing what works and what doesn't. You have to build the intuition to know what's going to work and what's not.
Nice. I've actually on the topic of interfaces and kind of like the MCP UI that Kent was talking about. I've had some decent experimental success using Nux content, and you can have all these custom components, in Nux content. And you can just, tell your AI about those, let them know what components are available, what properties or what props they take, and have a similar kind of output to what Kent was talking about. So for the Vue world, that might be something worth experimenting with if you're into Vue.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciate about Kent's perspective is that he's looking at MCP as like a protocol, as something that is, a constant almost. It's like, this isn't going to change. We kind of feel like, we should see a good bit of adoption of this. But if you look at the actual interfaces that we have today, which is primarily a chat interface, either it's in terminal or it's, I actually think the interfaces themselves are actually very underdeveloped, is how I would describe it. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot more stuff, kind of like what you built with Justin with Bod Coach, where it's, it's a lot more kind of strategic as far as getting to moments and tracking, and it's even hard to quantify in language, to be honest. And so I think going back to the point that you just made, Justin, the most important thing I think is to get started, and it's actually to the way that we build the future is by actually building the future. Now, one cool project that I've seen is Hash Brown, and it's actually a set of kind of UI components that you can convert. It's a library that allows you to convert your already existing front end components into tools that your agents can use. It's really interesting. And I think these are the sorts of things that we're going to really want to play with, because a large portion, I don't think we're throwing everything away that happened in the past. This is one of the things that I think is really cool, is that you're going to take some of these primitives that we built from kind of a front end component perspective and maybe reuse it. And I think that's really interesting.
Awesome.
That's cool. I've not heard of that before.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. Any more thoughts on that question? Are we ready to move on to the next?
Yeah, let's hear the next.
Let's go on. Yep. All right. So next up, as someone who is quite far into AIDD already, how do you think the course can shape me? I felt like the first course, which is released for Instires, was basic, and I get it. It's an introduction. Personally, didn't learn anything new there, but how do you think future courses will work out? So I'll start off on that one. We did start from ground zero. So this is specifically discussing the AIDD masterclass that we're talking about. As we did start out on really the ground level, really kind of showcasing what is possible with AI. What does it look like integrating for some AI into your workflow for someone who's at ground zero? The courses do build as you move on, right? So, for example, Justin gets into doing things like working with Claude CLI as opposed to just having an agent inside of Cursor, but actually managing a CLI agent. He also gets into things like MCPs and even building your own MCP and other advanced topics like that. Garrison up here is getting into like really time driven. I'm talking for you guys. I guess I get to see a lot of the content these guys are creating, which has been great for me. But yeah, I guess probably either one of you, Garrison, would you like to share maybe some of the things that you're working on there?
Yeah, one of the things that I can say to this is that I think a large portion of what we're kind of seeing, what my lesson is about building strategic or reusable agents. It's not just a chat interface. And I think that this is actually a pattern that is really helpful for people to understand. In a lot of ways, I think a lot of the applications that we're going to end up building in the future are actually things like this. I kind of call this like when I put on like my enterprise hat, I call this the age of internal tools. I think everybody's, we had internal tools previously, but I think internal tools kind of for our workflows are about to explode, where you're going to have your own set of kind of things that you actually work against because you built it and you're familiar with it and you like it. And that's kind of what I see specifically about strategic or reusable agents, and where I think kind of the course, where it's heading is actually, I think, more in terms of a personalized development experience. I think in the past we used a lot of standardization, and that's still obviously going to be there, but I also think that we're going to have our own sort of mental pathways, if you will. Like I can tell you, I think a little bit differently than other people when I learn something. And I think that that's something that's really unique about the thing that we're building with AIDD, is that you're actually going to be able to customize a lot of these tools, specifically the strategic agents, to meet your needs, not just, kind of pull something off the shelf.
Yeah. Arjan? I mean, I would just, at a high level, there's tons in here. Garrison's building agents. We're going to go through like everything from how do you evaluate models when they come out? Who should you be following in the space to know when models are coming out? Like, are they good or not? Because you need to pick up a lot of signal from the community in general. What kinds of channels should you be tuned into? Things like that. How do you do your own evals on models? Like, how do you make sure that models are valuable or not valuable? Specifically in your application, to kind of speak to what Garrison is saying, like creating your own ecosystem for being successful. So for you to have your own evals, so you're not just looking at, the benchmarks that are out there, which are notoriously bad at actually saying how well you're going to have your developer life impacted by it. So things like that. Running swarms of agents. I'm going to be talking about that too. Building your own MCP servers, like Daniel said, and specifically not MCP servers so you can run Playwright. Those are well done. There's a place where MCP servers are not well done, which is at your company. How do I use MCP servers for my company to be able to expose important information into my workflow? So things like that. Anyway, there's lots to come. I'm sure you will drown in goodness.
And yeah, go ahead, Mostafa.
Yeah, I was gonna say that on the top of all of this, we're basically, of course, the first course is an intro, and the person who asks already knows that. But going forward, we're actually going into workflows, like what do you need to do first, and then next, and so on. Like you saw in Justin's slides, he has like a way of doing things that has worked for him very well, and that's what he's sharing. And same goes for Garrison, same goes for Daniel Kelly, same goes for other instructors as well for future courses in AI-driven development. So we're talking here about like a complete coverage of everything we know and all the experience we have so far about AI-driven development, and just transferring that to everyone else to make sure that everyone knows this and they can build on it and they can talk about it in the community and they can develop even more or better workflows that works best for them as well. So it's just like a growing set of courses and a growing community. That's what AIDD is. That is eventually, its main goal is to make sure that you have a map, make sure that you have a way, like Justin mentioned, people you follow, community that you're engaging in, workflows that you know of, and workflows that you invent, and workflows that you teach other people. So it's just continuous learning journey that we go through together. And we're covering everything from MCPs, RAG, all the concepts, all the workflows that we can find out there that could be helpful for everyone. So yeah.
All right. Going on to the next question here. It has quite a few upvotes, so sounds like this will be interesting for a lot of people. I am afraid of the future of junior programmers. If they rely too much on the AI and they don't yet have the skills to know how good code should look or work, how can they review and verify generated code? Where are they going to pick up the necessary skills? Is code writing or reading not necessary anymore?
Okay. I bet we all have a different opinion on this.
Yeah.
It's a valid question.
I think I know some of Justin's opinion here.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I think this is part of just how our jobs as the experienced devs are transforming, right? It's our job to do more of this review and things. But do I still, even as an experienced dev, like, do I still rely sometimes on the output of an AI? Yes. But just as much as I rely on what I copied from Stack Overflow, right? Like, neither one is a 100% reliable source in all cases, right? Where everybody is building products that are the best they can be, the best that team or that dev can build, and everything is always going to have bugs. So I don't know. I think you still have to know how to read or write code, but you have to expect that nobody in the loop, human or AI like, is ever going to be like the perfect reviewer, right? It's just not going to happen. Maybe that doesn't answer the question. I think I went off the deep end.
The way I think of it is like when machines first like showed to the world and started being used instead of humans doing things manually. So when machines started doing things more automated, quicker, they don't get tired and all of these things, and they are cheaper and so on. What happened is that a lot of people were working on these things manually, and now they are out of job. They used to know the instructions of doing everything. Like, for example, if it's a boxing machine that is creating a box and putting things in it and then closing it. So thinking about something like that, the worker would need to know how to do that specifically, like the steps 1, 2, 3, with all the details, everything, and make sure that that everything is done according to the instructions that was given to them. But when machines came on, those people, they don't need this knowledge anymore, which is like the basic knowledge of how to do things step by step from the very beginning to the end. And that's how I think about it with AI. Like, I'm going to talk more about that in my talk after this panel. But basically, things are going to be completely changed, and we don't know to what extent. It could be that most of the things that juniors know would be irrelevant because other things like AI can do it instead of them. And it could be that they actually need to learn it more so that they can audit and review AI code properly. But when you think about it with the same example that I just gave about knowing the steps, the exact steps that needs to be taken and studying them and just familiarize yourself with them, if you think about that example, you're going to find that you're in between I don't know, you're not sure of what the future will be like. Is it going to be like AI is going to be too good that these things are not going to matter anymore? The programming language used is not going to matter anymore. The underlying technologies that is being used is not going to matter anymore. What matters the most, that it is very good at its job, that it gets things done. Is that happening this year? Is that happening in 10 years? No one knows. But what we do know all the time is that we always find something new to learn and something to add on the top of whatever technology or whatever tool that has been brought to us. So like no one is sure what's going to happen or what is that the final line that, or how good AI is going to be like. But all we know is that we're not there yet. Like we're not there yet where AI or the steps is irrelevant. So the good advice to give right now is that you must learn the fundamentals still. You must learn them. You must practice. You must know how to do clean code. And AI is not taking that away. Actually, AI right now is a tool to do things faster. But now, and I suspect in the next 5 years, you're still going to need to audit what AI does and how it does it. And you're still going to need to know the fundamentals, and you're still going to need to be a good developer so that you can get the best out of these tools. That's basically how I think of it. I think no one is just sure how is it going to be like.
I like to pretend that I'm sure, even though I'm not. But it's fun. It's more fun to pretend that I know everything. I think
right,
junior
IDEs are dead,
developers,
right?
Yeah, I think junior developers. My opinion on this, Mostafa's point, is waffled so many times. Most recently, I felt like they were in big trouble, and now I think they're going to be actually completely fine. And the reason is I think code doesn't matter. Like long term, I'm not saying today, but I'm saying in the very short term, right? Claude Code came out this year. And it has dramatically changed my own interaction with my code bases. I mean, I'm managing millions of lines of code, and I don't really look at the code anymore. What I care about is the artifact at the end and its provability about can it do the job that it was intended to do. And there was an interstitial period there where I cared a lot about the code, and I cared about the way that the code looked and the way the code acted and all of that kind of stuff. And, those days are already behind for me. So I don't care about the code. And I think over time, people will care less and less about the code. Now, that can make you feel sad. And I understand that. But at the same time, I think it's really, really important to realize like things are changing extremely fast, extremely fast. And so what actually matters is what has always mattered. What is the job of a developer fundamentally? If you thought the job of a developer was writing code and knowing the syntax, then you probably weren't a great developer already, because the job of a developer has never really been that. It's been to translate the real world into the machine world. And that job is going to exist for a long time. It just doesn't require the same skill sets. It reminds me of photography. There was a moment where being a photographer was being the guy with a camera. And now everybody has a camera. So what does it mean to be a photographer? Well, it means to capture a moment, to have artistic taste, to have a style, to have value that you're bringing to the world. And the same is going to be true in software engineer, right? Like you need to do something valuable, and you're going to do that in a different way than it was done before. And right now we're a little bit in between the two worlds. We can see both sides, and we can see like, ooh, yeah, it wrote bad code. That problem is just going to get better. And the more that you have patterns and procedures for yourself, so that way you know that the output is good, sort of like what I was talking about in my talk, where you have some sort of a cycle, you have a pattern that you're following to know that the output is right, and you can test it over time, and that when it grows, it's not all just in one giant file, for example. Like if you can create those patterns for yourself, you'll be very successful. And that's like what it will mean to be a developer, is knowing how to do that skill. So that'd be my answer. They'll be fine.
One of the things that I like about what you just said, Justin, is that it highlighted the fact that our profession is actually an outcome-based profession. Like we don't actually, like it's not like, you know, we actually get compensated in some way, shape, or form for how pretty our code is written. We've all worked with people who actually over-indexed on code quality and struggled to ship features or struggled to produce business value. And those were difficult experiences is my guess. It was always a painful interaction. It still is always a painful interaction when you're talking with somebody who cares less about the actual value that you're supposed to bring and cares more about the code. And I think in this in this day and age of AI, that's kind of what we're seeing, is that actually we're being reminded again that this is an outcome-based profession. We have to produce results, and we actually, and sometimes, by the way, like with Compute SDK, we care a lot about code quality because, we primarily sell to developers using AI agents. And so to some extent, yeah, we're going to want our, we're going to want beautiful API layers so that it's self-documenting, that sort of thing. But, if you're working on if you look at Nomad List from Peter Levels, he has one PHP file that he uses to manage the whole thing, and he makes a large amount of money from it, and God bless him. That's a beautiful thing. And we all can see that. And he doesn't care about code quality. And hey, it works.
Justin, my like workflow timeline when I first started creating AI, I think like if you broke it down into, so there's 100% of my time, right? And in the beginning, a lot of it was like 20% of my time prompting, and then I don't know, another 20% of my time tweaking, manually doing things, and the rest of it was spent actually just really line by line seeing what did this thing make, right? And now I find myself spending a lot more time in the very beginning, say maybe 50%, getting the details right of what I actually want and defining what a good result looks like. And then just telling the AI, this is where we're starting. This is what I want to get to. You do everything. And then it can check itself. And at the end, I spend maybe 10% of time reviewing code it wrote and more time reviewing, does the output look like I wanted it to look like? And that's a lot easier than reviewing code line by line. That's saying, okay, this box is checked. This UI element is there. This property of this object equals this value. And it's easier to do, and you move faster. But that's my progression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so next question. How do you balance, number one, how do you balance bills, cost of using tools like Claude, Copilot, and Gemini with building apps?
What a great question. Pay the money. That's my recommendation to everybody. Spend the money. There's no replacement for it. I think the fair number right now would be, you should probably be willing to spend around $400 a month per full-time employee on AI credits. I think that's probably a pretty good realistic. So that could be like a Claude Code max subscription, and some like ChatGPT at $20 and something else at $20, like kind of across all the domains. I think that's kind of the upper limit of what's a good price. I'm talking about full-time engineer, that's what I would say. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree, Justin, because when you try to save money on working with LLMs, you're really just cheating yourselves in a lot of ways because you get subpar results. But when I reach for Claude 4 thinking, like in Cursor, and that's basically all I do nowadays, I turn on auto for smaller tasks. But the majority of my prompts into Cursor with Claude 4, Claude Sonnet thinking, and it just gets it right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing in the chat, hi chat people. I see a lot of things in the chat about code quality is low. Agents don't do a great job at writing code and stuff like that. And I would say on average that is becoming less and less and less true over time. And part of the reason is that people try to save money on the cost. Mm-hmm. And I agree that the lower end models do a poor job, but if you do good prompting and you have good structure and you have a good pattern for yourself, these high end models will write better code than most senior developers. They just will. The only place where I would say this is not true is in completely novel things. So if I'm writing a completely novel piece of code, an unsolved problem, like I wrote a streaming multiplexer. There is no streaming multiplexer that exists. I looked, or I would have used it. There is no streaming multiplexer out there. I wrote one myself with, you know, bit shifts and all that kind of stuff, and the agents couldn't do it, and I could do it. Those places are, I mean, I come across those problems once every 4 years, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. They just keep getting better.
All right.
I do think on the, I mean, and we talked about this a little bit, but the way that you balance your bill cost, I think, is by actually like utilizing it properly. That's essentially your optimization strategy, is like you don't approach it with incomplete thoughts, or if you do, you know that you are having incomplete thoughts. For instance, in a multi-tenant application, there are several gotchas, right? If you want to, you know, you should kind of know before you start prompting, do you want a dedicated database for your SaaS app per each tenant, or do you not? Because if you go back and forth in your prompting between, you know, essentially speaking out of both sides of your mouth, you're going to get bad results because those are two very different situations.
Yeah, what people should not hear me say or anybody else say is that this is a skill-less job now. It's not at all. If anything,
not.
more skill and more wisdom is required now than ever before. You need to have excellent architecture. You need to have a clearer vision of what you're building. Instead of setting out and writing code, and then while you're writing the code, kind of be like, oh, I'll solve the problem this way. You almost have to be able to stand back and solve the problem ahead of time. And then the actual syntax is the thing that doesn't matter. Like, you know, it almost doesn't matter to me if I'm writing an app now in TypeScript, Python, Rust, whatever, other than the fact that each of those languages offer different benefits. But from an actual syntax perspective, it's less important than it's ever been before. So that's what I would say. Like, yes, the code quality, sure, it still matters a little bit because the AI has to read the code and, you know, things like that. But where we're heading in the very short term, like 1 year away, is where the code, the idea of code quality needing to be important is going down, and the other ideas are becoming more important. So your ability to be a wise discerner and a wise architect and create real value through your ability to understand the real world, that's the real job. That's the real job.
All right. Maybe 2 sentences. What do you think about a vibe debugging specialist? 2 sentences. Anybody? I think there will be a need for experts to help fix some of the issues of the people who got in and got started and were moving really quick and then got over their heads. I'll put it that way.
So is the question essentially, what do you think about a bug fixer as like a task or a job or like a career?
Yeah, I think
fixing somebody who vibe coded a project and turning it into production grade. That's my interpretation. I'm doing one of those right now, actually. So I guess it exists, but I don't know that it's an interesting gap in the market. I don't know how long that'll exist, or I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's kind of promising.
I'm also vibe coding it. That's what, like, to go back to the previous point. Sorry, Daniel. Screw the 2 sentences. To go back to the previous point, the point is not the vibe code. It's the fact that I can vibe code the thing the other guy couldn't. Does that make sense? Like, somebody vibe coded something, they couldn't get it to the finish line. They come to a developer who's going to use the same tools they were using, who knows how to get it across the finish line, right? That's like what you should want to be empowered to be able to do.
And it's not about prompt tricks, fancy stuff. It's about your knowledge and what you bring to the architecture, right? What you know about the architecture and how it should be. All right. So next question. Coming up. Oh, here we go. So where do designers fall in the AI-driven workflow?
Yeah, they're out of jobs, just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else.
It's interesting to me that we all look at like that. There's this question, the consistent question of like, well, whose job is going to be lost? AI, and you know, it feels like it creates so many more jobs.
Yeah.
True.
I was just talking to my co-founder yesterday about this exact thing, and we were saying this is another thing where you can't predict the future. But a year ago, we were of the opinion, sort of, that like the writing's on the wall for that job, for the designer job, and it turns out that the writing's on the wall for like the idea, like the more like the stock photo thing, but actual design is sort of a distillation of what we're talking about, where it's like you're making these sort of architectural like decisions and stuff. And I think it's going to be actually really important for a long time still. I think it's got a decade on it, on that, like the existing skill set of like designing something in Photoshop. The tools might change a little bit, but I think it's actually really important. Maybe more important now, actually. Yeah.
It depends on what you mean by design. I think if you mean like you can cobble together an existing UI library and make a nice interface, like,
right.
No offense, AI can do that pretty well,
yes.
Right?
But the designers didn't want to do that. Like, they didn't want to get a starter project designed. They wanted to actually build a full application. That's what they wanted to do.
Yeah. So there's definitely still room for it, but you've got to be making. You're not using the stock stuff. You're creating marketing sites for Coca-Cola, for Apple. You're doing the crazy, animation stuff that the Apple's doing. Conceptually, you may not even be making the animation. The AI may be doing the actual thing, but conceptually, you're making that happen and drawing out and figuring out what that looks like, right?
Yeah, I've been exploring, like the past few days, I've been exploring the tools that can generate videos, right? So I was trying to find a way where I can create $1 million ad. I'm going to be honest, it's for AIDD. So I was thinking, why don't we make $1 million ad for AIDD with all these great video models out there that can do impressive stuff? And I did try with few things, and the result is astonishing. Like, I really don't know what's next, but they have gone so far. You just give it, like, you can get part of a video, give it as an example, or you can describe it, or you can do whatever it is and just give it a prompt to say that, make it cinematic, where there is a robot and there is a human and all of that thing. And the quality of the output is just impressive. That is scary good. And something like that, in the real world, people would spend months on producing it. So having it just like this is kind of impressive, to be honest. Like, it gone so far. I remember when video models were just basically messing up the fingers and things go inside each other and they do all kind of crazy things on video. And now it's crazy good. So it's not only designers, not only developers. It's basically just a tool that can do things quicker and faster. And the limitation is going to be basically, not the limitation, your skill is going to be on how good can you be competing with others using the same tools. Like, all of us has the same tools. All of us used to use VS Code, used to use whatever the code editor with all the things that is assisting us. But what matters is the output. What can you generate with these tools? So I guess it's the same for everyone.
All right. Well, we are unfortunately running out of time. We have one more question left that we can get to. And I'm going to shoot for the highest upvoted one here. It's a bit of a long one. There have obviously been a lot of conversations, both good and bad, about how effective AI can be in speeding up products to market. We are experimenting with a new team, agent-driven team, to break from the traditional way a team works. Do you have any advice for us as we get into this?
I would love to know more about what you're doing, Dean. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I don't know what the
agent-driven team is an interesting idea that I have not explored what that would look like across. Like, is it creating to-do lists? You know, like, is everybody just using an agent? I wonder what it means, you know?
Right. Yeah, but I do think there's an interesting concept here that, like, this is not just an AI driven development team. This is like AI driven team across, I assume, across multiple, you know, communication between multiple teams and how they can work together better with agents, which is interesting and out of my price range, I think.
I think to take a stab at answering the question, do you have any advice for us with just limited information we have? I think my advice would be to, you know, put more thought into the planning stage, and I think this is something we all can agree about. Put more thought into the planning stage than you would expect, and try and de-risk and debunk as many fallacies or problems as possible. Play with it theoretically inside your mind, and then and then finally, when it gets time to actually produce an output, spend less time on that. That would be that's how I'm doing all of my projects, is I'm caring more about, you know, the architecture than I am about the time coding.
Yeah, that's right. That's a real skill too. Even knowing the granularity of the feature to give to AI to code. Those are things you have to, the intuition that you have to build up. It's part of this new job, is knowing that. I'm really partial at this point. I don't think this is what you're saying, but I'm really partial at this point to using a swarm of agents that are all working at the same time. And it's a new skill that I'm developing for myself, where I usually have probably about 6 agents running at the same time. And so the job is very different, because it's all about figuring out what the next important thing is that's discrete enough that it can be run in its own way, and then having the right tools and everything to manage that. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Conceptually, that's a much harder problem. That is, you know, it is, you literally have to hold the concerns inside your mind, and it is a lot trickier than figuring out what is the next method that I need to import from this library.
Yeah. It's fun though.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
I'm going to have to pick your brain on that some more, Justin. I'm too ADD. I have 2 agents and I'm like,
No, Daniel, you're AIDD.
That's right. It was right there for you.
All right. Thank you all so very much for your time here during the panel. Sorry to anyone whose questions we did not get to, but guys, if you want to stick around for just a few minutes and hop into the Q&A tab if you have the time, and throw any answers that you find valuable in there, I think that would be super awesome.